What's up, 4A? Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Kind of different in here. There's nobody in here, so kind of weird speaking to an empty class. But anyway, hope everybody's well, and hope to see everybody back here on Monday. We're going to look at the Great Depression today, kind of the causes of the Great Depression, what led to the Great Depression. We're going to be looking at that. Big story, obviously, cold weather. Supposed to be down in the 20s tonight. Maybe a little bit warmer tomorrow, but tomorrow night we'll be back down in the 20s. Going to be chilly the rest of the week. Good chance of rain moving in late Wednesday night, Thursday night. And weekend's looking dry for the parade Saturday night. It's going to be chilly, so you'll need a jacket if you're going to be going to the parade or in the parade. And so, today, let's look at the Great Depression. One thing that you need to know about the Great Depression, that it was from 1929 to 1940. 1929 to 1940 was the Great Depression. We're going to look at the causes. Of course, this slide says 1939. That's fine, too, if you want to put 1939. And so, 1929, you had the stock market crash. Didn't realize the effect it would have. No money to replenish what was borrowed. And so at first, the stock market crashed in 1929, and that's going to set a string of events that will eventually lead to the Great Depression. Now, going back a little bit, you have the Roaring Twenties. It was a good time, a good life. Big band, Charleston, the Flappers. We talked all about that. You had this new concept of credit. People now, for the first time in the 1920s, could buy stuff on credit. That means that you could get it and pay for it later with interest. And so this was a deal where people had a great time doing that. And it's a good time doing that. Eventually, though, you have to pay up. And of course, today we have credit cards. And you can basically get a credit card and you can spend a lot of money, have a small payment at first, but eventually you have to pay that sucker back, and that's going to be tough, especially if you get 3 or 4 credit cards going at one time. But anyway, it was good times though, the 1920s. People were buying. We talk about automobiles, Henry Ford, appliances, clothes, fun times, dancing, flappers, drinking. So the Roaring Twenties, it was a good time for everybody. Why was this bad though? Buying stuff on credit. People didn't really have the money they were spending. Okay. World War I, the United States was a major credit loaner to other nations in need. Many of these nations could not pay us back. So we loaned out money, okay, and countries could not pay us back. And on top of that, we're spending money that we don't have. And so this is going to set the stage for the Great Depression. It's never good at all if you're making $3,000 a month and you're spending $3,100 a month. That's not good. You cannot spend more than you can make. Unfortunately, in the United States, you're allowed to do that for a time. In the United States, credit card companies and stuff will allow you to spend more money than you're making for a while. But eventually, it will catch up to you. So, easy money, credit. Interest rates on loans were too low. Too much borrowing, interest rates and savings were too low. Too much spending. Okay? So basically, this sums it up. You had too much spending going on and not enough saving going on. All right? Too much spending and not enough saving. So these are all causes of the Great Depression. So, causes of the Great Depression. The first one, buying on credit. 80% of radios and 60% of cars were on credit. So that's the first cause the Great Depression, buying on credit. Wealth is distributed unevenly. Corporate profits rose 65% in the 1920s. The rich became much richer and the workers became basically less poor. And so you had an uneven distribution of wealth, and that's a problem the United States has kind of always had. You've always had people some people making a lot of money. Everybody else is making a little bit of money. And so you had an uneven distribution of wealth. If you look at the 1920s and 1930s salary, bus driver, no power steering or brakes, okay? You had a bus driver made basically 43 cents an hour, okay? Teacher made $1,227 a year, $1,227. Waitress made 20 cents an hour. A farmhand made 7 cents an hour, okay? Eventually, the United States will get what's called a minimum wage. Back then, there was no minimum wage laws, okay? Highest paid construction worker in the Ford Motor Company, $500 a day, $5 a day, or 48 cents an hour. And so, you can tell that the salaries were not very good. So, uneven distribution of wealth, like I said, was another cause of depression. Many poor and very few rich. Workers earn so little they can't buy the products they produce. Wages were as little as 20 to 25 cents per hour. Even the best employer, Ford Motor Company, was basically a $5 a day shift from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift. So there you go. Second cause of the Great Depression, uneven distribution of wealth. Richer got richer. Buying on credit. And then you had the stock market. You had the stock market. People bought stocks on margins. Everybody was buying stocks. If a stock is $100, you can pay $10 now and the rest later when the stock rose. Stocks fall, now the person has less than $100 and no money to pay back. So basic math, okay? Basically, you could go buy $100 worth of stock, okay, for $10, and you basically borrowed $90 of it. That's good if it went up. If it went up from $100 to $300, then that's great. However, that stock went from $100 to $3, you still owe, that money that you did not basically pay at first. You still owe $90. And so that's the problem. So people were risking a lot of money in the stock market. They were gambling in the stock market. And then when people panicking about their money, investors try to sell their stocks. This tends to lead to a huge decline in stocks. Stocks were worthless now. People who bought on margin now could not pay investors, were average people that were now broke. And so investors tried to sell their stocks all at once, and this led to the stock speculation. Eventually the stock market crashed, buying on margin, and then Black Tuesday. All righty. So, what about the people? Farmers are already feeling the effects. Prices of crops went down to the 1920s. Even before the Depression hit, farmers still were having a very difficult time. People could not afford luxuries. Factories shut down. Businesses went out. Banks could not pay out money. People could not pay their taxes. Schools shut down due to lack of funds. Many families became homeless and had to live in shanties. And so, you had agricultural overproduction, increased technology, good growing conditions, supply greater than demand. This is probably the number one cause of the Great Depression, was overproduction. Overproduction in agriculture and overproduction in stuff like radios, clothes, furniture. Everything was going so good. The factories, farms were producing so much that eventually people couldn't buy it all. And so that led, is going to eventually lead to more depression, okay, in the Great Depression. So this is your causes of the Great Depression: agricultural overproduction, uneven distribution of wealth, buying on credit, stock speculation. And that puts us at the about 10-minute mark in this video. So anyway, that's going to be it for today as far as the causes of the Great Depression. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll kind of finish up the causes of the Great Depression. We'll kind of get into a little bit of Hoover tomorrow and exactly what Hoover was going to do. Hoover was President of the United States at the time of the Great Depression, but we'll get into that tomorrow. So y'all have a good day.